And it's the only gospel that mentions this. It's Matthew 19. Since we're here, we might as well we'll go here. Just a little bit. Matthew 19. This is the famous confrontation between the Pharisees and Jesus about marriage. And it's in all three of the synoptics, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But Matthew is the only one that has this little difference about it. And it's this one little difference that Protestants, if you will, glom onto and feel that they have an escape clause. Okay, it's called the exception clause. Matthew 19, let's start with verse 1. Well, when Jesus finished these things, he went away from Galilee and entered the region of Judea. A large crowd followed him, and he healed them there. So that's important. Whenever Jesus heals, he's establishing his ability as God on earth, because these are miraculous healings. Then the Pharisees came up to him and tested him. They're testing his authority to do this. And they say, is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause? Did you hear that? Can we divorce for any cause, Jesus? Yes or no? Jesus answered, have you not read that he who made them from the beginning made them male and female? For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one. So they are no longer two, but one. What does Jesus appeal to? Where? Whose marriage? Adam and Eve. He goes right to the beginning. They're arguing on whether the law permits a person to divorce for any cause. Jesus said, let's go to the beginning, when marriage began, Adam and Eve. So we're bypassing the law and going right, if you will, to the source. Now, are they satisfied? No. Verse 7, they said to them, why then did Moses command one to give a certificate of divorce and to put her away? Now, the Pharisees were right. In the book of Deuteronomy, Moses permitted the children of Israel to divorce and to remarry. You know why? Because the original law in Exodus was too strong. They couldn't keep it. So Deuteronomy is the second law. That's the name. That's what it means. Deuteronominus. Deutero means second. Nominus means law. It's the second law giving. The laws in Exodus, in comparison to the laws of Deuteronomy, are much different. In Deuteronomy, there's a lot more concessions made. Okay? Now keep reading. What does Jesus have to say about this? He said to them, for your hardness of heart, Moses allowed you to divorce your wife. But from the beginning, it was not so. Did you hear that? So Jesus answers the question. First of all, Moses didn't command you to do this. He permitted you to do this. I love the way the Pharisees said, Moses commanded us to divorce, so I'm just going to follow the law. I'm going to divorce my wife. I'm following the law. See, that's a way to weasel around the whole idea of marriage when you just want to get out of a relationship. You know what I'm saying? See, that's talk about the hardness of men's hearts. Here it is coming up in spades. I'm going to stop at 8 o'clock on this idea and move on. So let's see if I can do it.
Read fast.
Read fast. Verse 9, I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for unchastity and marries another commits adultery. And he who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Did you catch that? This is part of the church's law. This is where Jesus established the indissolubility of marriage. Now, the question is, what do you mean? But Jesus said, except for unchastity. There's an exception. We can weasel out of this if they've been unchaste. Right? Wrong. Well, it says that. Are you arguing with the scriptures, Chip? I say there's an exception. We can get out of this marriage if someone's been unchaste. First of all, back up a bit. Two things. One, in the Greek, this word is porneia, where we get the word pornography from. It means dirty or unclean. It does not say adultery. That's a separate word that Jesus uses in here. So if Jesus meant you can get out of a marriage except for an adulterous affair, he would have used the same word. He doesn't. Well, what do you mean unclean, except for an unclean? What does that mean? Except for porneia. The way the church has interpreted this is quite clear. It means as if there was something illegal about the marriage to begin with, in which case there wasn't a marriage. Hence, annulments. Annulments, let me say this once again, because I know everyone thinks annulments are Catholic divorce. They are not. Well, we got married and now we're going to get it annulled. It's like a divorce. No, it's not. No, it's not. An annulment, what is something that's null? It's zero. There's nothing there. An annulment, that's a cheap way of saying it. The technical term is what you get is a decree of nullity. That's what the church issues. And what it says is, when we investigate this so-called marriage, we found out that there were some elements that were lacking. Therefore, there was no marriage to begin with. It's null. Null and void. You never were married. Whatever happened, however many kids you had, whatever that was, it wasn't a marriage. Do you understand that? Now, what are those conditions? Talk to a canon lawyer. I don't know all the details. But I will say this. What I do know is if there's not full consent of the will at the time of the marriage. For example, I'm a 16-year-old girl. My boyfriend's gotten me pregnant. My parents forced me to marry the boy because they're not going to have any shame in their family. You made this problem, girl, you're going to marry the boy, and he's going to take care of you. Is that a legitimate marriage? No, because I, the 16-year-old girl, have no say in this. I'm being forced into it by my parents. I don't have full consent of the will. Now that's a very extreme example. But the point is, it's those kinds of things that the church investigates by talking to the people that are involved in the marriage. So back to me and my first marriage, that I'm trying to get annulled. Well, they need to find that woman, find out what happened, what caused the divorce, what's going on, why did we get married in the first place? I mean, there's a whole tribunal that comes up to investigate that. What if the church decides, you know what, everything is there. It was a legit marriage. It sticks. That's exactly right. And the person I'm married to is an illegitimate marriage, because now I'm married to two people, one legitimately and one illegally, if you will, illegitimately. You see that? So that's a whole other ball of wax. The point is, this exception clause has nothing to do with adultery. That's how Protestants interpret this. They say that if there's unfaithfulness in the marriage, that could be grounds for a divorce. If one of the spouses is unbelieving, that could be grounds for divorce, a legitimate divorce. These are all exceptions Protestants come up with. And I know because I was there, I would hear them. Okay? That has nothing to do with what Jesus is saying here. Proof, read verse 10. The disciple said to him, if such is the case of a man with his wife, it is not expedient to marry. In other words, Jesus, if you're expecting us to be in this till death do us part, that's too much. And by the way, a lot of the apostles, including Peter, were married. So it's like Jesus is saying, boys, you're not getting out of this. Got it? So the fact that the disciples react the way they do shows that Jesus has elevated the status of marriage to this high position that it originally had, but fell into this, was permitted by God to allow divorce and remarriage. Because why? The hardness of men's hearts. But that was before Jesus came and dealt with the sin issue. Now we've dealt with the sin issue, we go back to what it was in the beginning. That's basically what Jesus is saying. So that's the whole grounds for it. Okay? Can we put marriage to bed now? Thank you.